you have to be a little bit crazy to not just dream the best version of the life that you want, right? For me, production company or TV show or Broadway performance. You have to be crazy enough to dream it and then to go after it and achieve it in a world that is going to tell you you can't, in a world that is going to tell you that there are so many other people trying to do that no one needs to hear what you have to say. You have to be delulu enough to step outside of that and continue to pursue it anyway.
Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Shafer of Talks with Dr. Shafer. I'm so glad you're here. I'm a physician, mom, life coach, musician, author, publisher, and I am passionate about helping others reclaim their stories so they can build their most beautiful future. Now, today on the show, we have an inspiring artist, and they have big plans when it comes to story building. We are so excited to be a part of their story today. Wesley Ryan is a creative who has many talents. They're a writer, singer, actor, producer, director, and founder of Our Way Original. Wesley Ryan has spent the last 6 years touring with the smash hit musical Hamilton and has written the television series Places, Please, about the behind-the-scenes lives of Broadway performers, highlighting the sacrifice and real-life experiences of the wonderful people who bring theater to life for all of us. Wesley, thank you so much for being on the show.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Wesley, I have been so enjoying diving into the online community and world that you have created, especially on Instagram. That's the platform that I've really been diving into. And one of the things that I love about your story and the way you tell it is you really frame yourself as a dreamer and an advocate for living in delusion, which I absolutely love. And you call yourself, for our audience that may not have met you yet on social media, you call yourself the chief delusionary.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
I love it. How did you come into that? And why did that really, you talk about your crew, because it's not just about you, it's about the community you're building, about Crew Delulu. Why did this idea of living a delusional big life resonate with you? And how did you decide to take that and run with it?
I think, well, it stemmed from a place of realizing that you have to be a little bit crazy to not just dream the best version of the life that you want, right? For me, production company or TV show or Broadway performance. You have to be crazy enough to dream it and then to go after it and achieve it in a world that is going to tell you you can't, in a world that is going to tell you that there are so many other people trying to do that no one needs to hear what you have to say. The internet is, unfortunately, as great as it can be, and it has been very kind to me, it can also be a cesspool for negativity and for back and forth vitriol that can just be so damaging. So to combat that, on top of what goes on in here and our negative self-talk, our learned negative beliefs about ourselves, about the limits on our capabilities, you have to be crazy. You have to be delulu enough to step outside of that and continue to pursue it anyway. And, people talk about manifestation, people talk about prayer and emboldening and empowering yourself. And I think that in order to achieve, a lot of them say that in order to achieve that, you have to live as though it's already yours. And that takes a little bit of insanity to do that. A little bit of delusion, a lot of delusion at times. I find myself, I still suffer from imposter syndrome. And it's one of the things that I'm trying to heal. It's one of the reasons why I'm building this entire network that I'm working toward, is to try to heal that part of me, that if we can look outside of ourselves and see others as a reflection of where we are, then spaces that we're in, it's not oh, I'm lucky to be here. It's look around at the tables that I'm sitting at. I'm a part of this table. I'm not just a afterthought to the table. So living your delusion is stepping into the belief that the life I already want is mine, and then living every single day and making every next decision in pursuit of that dream until it's yours. Manifestation isn't magic. It's intention. It's choice. It is thoughtful action, and it's living your delusion out loud until it is represented and reflected in your 3D reality. So I started, we've been saying Delulu for years, but I was like, well, like I'm going to live my delusion. Like I'm going to make sure that the life I want becomes mine and is mine, because if we can dream it, we can do it, right? It sounds cliche, but it's true. If God put the message, the calling, the purpose on our spirit, then we're able to achieve it. And we don't give ourselves that credit very often. We often go, well, that's just a pipe dream, or that's just, somebody else's life. Somebody else will do it. When instead, like, no, that calling's on your heart. Go, chase it, run, and believe and know that you can. And that's the hard work. That's where living the delusion comes in. Because the second that your brain goes, ooh, but can I? I've got to interrupt that negative self-thought and go, yes, it's already mine. Over and over and over until I believe it. Because once we do, we're magnets for everything that we want. We attract everything that we want.
I love the way you frame this and the way that our brains work. As a neurologist, it's so important to understand that, for one thing, we can't multitask. And in this situation, that's a really good thing. We don't switch from one screen to another like on a computer. You have one open screen that you're working with. That can be frustrating when people like yourself and myself, we've got so many things we want to accomplish. But the power in that is that if we focus on the delusion, if we focus on the dream, we reframe it as such, that means we can't look backwards at what I have this funny tool called the butt wheel, and it's it's BUT, and I put it that way because it's supposed to disarm you by making you laugh. But often when we think about BUT, we're thinking, I want to have a television series, but this didn't work, but I don't have it yet. And what we can do is, if we decide to focus forward or focus on the delusion, focus on the dream, we say, I don't have a TV show yet, but I want to, right? And when our focus is there, when it's forward on the dream, because of the way our brains are formatted, we can't look back. We can't get stuck in the baggage that we're carrying that's holding us back, that we need to learn how to let go. Now, I know, working in theater and in entertainment, if you're like everyone else I know, myself included, you get a lot more no's and a lot more disappointments than yeses. How do you learn how to let go of that baggage instead of carrying it forward and negatively impacting you? How do you learn how to let it fuel you as you move forward towards your goals?
It took me a very long time to do that. Like you said, we are going to get 1,000 no's before every yes. And I've been so blessed throughout my life that there have been so many open doors and so many yeses. It's another reason why I try to be as honest and open and transparent on my social media. Because if you look at my life from the outside, it has been a string of yeses. It has been a whole lot of great travel, contracts, money, Hamilton. But for all of that, there have been so many more no's. And in this industry, it's not even a no, it's silence. You don't get a no, we went a different way this time. We get oh, the cast list went out and I'm not on it. I guess I didn't get it. And it's so disrespectful to me. I feel like if you make it to final callbacks and it's between me and a couple other people, you can send an email that says, you don't even have to put my name in it. You could say, it could be a stock email that you just send out to whoever's on that list and say, thank you so much for coming in. Casting decided to go a different direction this time. We appreciate what you did, period. And then I can let it go and move on to other contracts. To answer your question, I had a turning point. I was working for Disney in Anaheim. I did the Red Car Newsboys show. It was like a Newsies paperboy show in California Adventure. Mickey Mouse comes out. We teach him how to sell papers and seize the day and ride through the giant red trolley through the park. And in the few years prior to that, I had gone in for Newsies on Broadway about 5 or 6 times. They'd called me out to New York 3 of those 6 times. Made it to the final 3 to 5 every single time, and every time I just heard nothing. It wasn't until I was working in the park one day and the director of Newsies had come to the park to see what we had been working on. And one of my dear friends who was our stage manager that day was in charge of taking him around the park and, guiding him through. And he recognized me. He didn't know from where, but he was like, I recognize that kid from somewhere. Like, what? How do I know him? And my stage manager knows me and knows the story. So she was like, he's actually auditioned for you many times. He's gone in for Newsies a bunch. And he was like, oh, that was it. We didn't cast him because he's too tall. First of all, I was like, then why did you keep calling me in? My height doesn't change. But also, it was this moment of like peace for me, because every single one of those no's I took personally, that my talent wasn't good enough, that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't deserve it. When in reality, I was too tall for the tracks they were trying to fill, and I can't change that. I have no shame. I am 6'1". I have no shame in that game. If I had known that earlier, I think I could have saved myself a lot of heartache. And so now oftentimes when I'm speaking, I do a lot of teaching and master classes around the country, around the world. And at any of the Q&As, I often tell people, like, we cannot take the no's personally. There are 1,000,001 reasons why we don't get things. And it can have nothing to do with our talent, our ability, and most certainly our value or our worth. If you can disconnect those two things, that the no is a reflection of you, you will save yourself. Not that it makes it feel any better. Obviously, disappointment is a thing. But when you don't carry the weight of it as if you could have done anything differently. Now, obviously, sometimes we bomb an audition. That happens. And you gotta let those roll off your back. And especially if you're living in New York and auditioning as frequently as we do, you come to learn, I'll be in that room again in a week or 6 months or tomorrow. That one didn't go as planned, and ha ha ha, let it go. You have to same mindset as not looking back. Like, I can't change what went on in that room. I can only go, okay, learn from that thing, move forward, do better next time. I mean, that's like the human experience, right? We get so caught up in the past that we forget, we let it affect our next steps. And then that's when the spiral and the like avalanche, if you will, wipes us out, because we got so caught up in what was, what could be, what isn't, that we weren't looking for what is and who we are and what we are. And our value, our worth does not change dependent on any of those no's. It's something that I wish that I would have learned many years ago. It's the thing that stopped me from moving to New York, is because I was like, well, I don't know that I can deal with that. Granted, I took jobs that took me overseas and traveled the world. So there were pros and cons. But, I was so fearful of those no's, and so fearful of, if I moved to New York and everybody told me to, if I wasn't successful and didn't do the thing that everybody told me I was going to do, not only did I let myself down, then I let them down. And I wasn't willing to face that yet. So it stopped me from doing a lot of things in my life. So if we can separate, like I said, the no's from our worth and our value, I firmly believe that our setbacks are redirections, and redirections are protection and realignment to our purpose and our calling. And if we can reframe them that way, like I said earlier, it doesn't make them feel any better, but it most certainly takes the weight off of them for them being like life ending or career ending. Like, it's another, okay, we pivot. That was not the direction I was supposed to go. Doors that aren't for us don't open. We hear that all the time. But the doors that are for us will open. So if we can not stop, a lot of times we try to manifest or pray for this, like the job. And when what we really want is like abundance. We want safety. We want peace. We want joy. That job may not have been any of those things. And we're over here, going, give me the job, give me the job, give me the job. when if you got that job, you'd have none of the things you actually wanted. So if we can, that's one of the major shifts in the last few years for me has been, okay, well, I'm not going to pray for a job. I'm not going to manifest a job. I'm going to manifest the feeling, the safety, the comfort that I want. And then the jobs that come to me, the things that align with that are like, going to find me. You know, a lot of times we're like, we're praying for raindrops when God has the ocean available in front of us. And I want the ocean.
It's beautiful. And Wesley, what I was having come up for me while you were speaking on this is this difference that I think is so incredibly important. And it's something that I wish that we taught young people more to recognize. Many people, when they are coming up into their third and fourth decade of life, they're starting to recognize that there is a difference between your profession and your passion. And they're going after the professional accolades and they're going after the degree. And maybe if you're a lawyer, that law firm, whatever it is, right? All right, I finally passed my medical boards. Now I can feel whole and complete. Why don't I feel whole and complete? I can get that attending job as a physician. Why do I still feel like an imposter? You referred to imposterism earlier. It's because we're not really leaning into creating a full self. We're externally looking for ways to validate, and that's not the way we can do it. And it makes me think about really how you even got started in musical theater. And I've read that you even entertained becoming a surgeon at one point in time. So how did
Yes.
you redirect and pivot at that point in your life and decide, and why did you decide that this was where your passion lies?
So, where to begin? I grew up in the church. I grew up singing in the choir. I always had an affinity for singing, dancing. When I was 3 years old, I did my first musical through the Cultural Arts Center where I grew up in Southern California. It was one of those theater companies where the adults play the leads, but they like herd 300 children out. You sing a number and they herd them all off. It was hardly showcasing work. But it allowed me to be someone or something I didn't feel like I was. I was a very shy child. You would not know it now, but I'm a very shy adult. My mom told me years ago, if you're going to pursue this as a career, like you're going to have to figure out how to get past that because no one's going to want to cast you, watch you if you're small, right? So I put on this persona. That's probably actually where Live Your Delusion started, and I didn't even know it then, was to live as the version of me outwardly, no matter what was reflected on the inside. But did a few shows with them. My aunt owned her own youth theater. She started running the youth program through that same cultural arts center when I was 8 years old. And so I started doing 3 musicals a year with her production company. And that turned into like a performance troupe that's like spun off from that theater company. And we would learn songs, learn choreography. You know, they'd give us little scripts for like whatever in between numbers we'd have to say and whatnot. But I never gave myself credit to pursue this as a career. As you mentioned, I wanted to be a surgeon. I chose the high school that I went to in Southern California because of their graduation percentage to 4-year universities. A lot of my graduating class and people who have come through that high school go into the medical profession of some kind. Nursing, doctor, surgeon, psychologist, you name it. My friends are doing, I wouldn't call them friends, my classmates. Haven't spoken to some of them in a decade. But when I was 15, my sophomore year of high school, a friend of mine was like, there's this new musical that they're doing that Jason Robert Brown composed called 13. You should go in for it. And I was like, I've never heard of this. Didn't know who Jason Robert Brown was when I auditioned for the show. And the auditions had passed. And so my mom emailed them and was like, hey, we're so sorry that we missed this. I would love if my son could come in and be able to be seen by you. And they were like, absolutely, we're still casting. We'll see you on Monday. Um, and then callbacks and things started picking up, and I was like, whoa, like I'm actually getting somewhere with this. Noticing the ball rolling in a positive direction. And the week of my final callback, my dad was supposed to come with us, and he didn't show up. He had his own addiction issues that kept him from being as present in my life as he could have been. And he didn't show up, and I was very upset. And my mom, on our way home from the callback, which went very well, my mom was like, my uncle owned his own hair salon, and my mom was like, Dad's at Uncle's hair salon, do you want to go? And I was like, no, I don't want to see him. And 2 days later he died. And I carried the weight of that. I mean, your 15-year-old self does all the mental gymnastics. If I had gone, would it have changed anything? Would it have been better, different if I had just gone and seen him, you know? And a month after that, I booked that musical. And I had to leave school because we were tutored on set. And most people at my high school didn't even know that I performed, sang, or danced. When I told my friends that I was leaving, they were like, what? Like, you sing? Like, I wasn't involved in the choir at school. Like, I didn't do any of that. It was all outside of, it was like very compartmentalized identities. That stems from growing up queer in the church, but that's a conversation for another time. But I booked that show, and it changed my entire trajectory of life. Having that loss of my father and this career changing, life changing, affirming moment. I mean, there were like heavy hitters in this cast. One of the women, she's on Broadway currently. She was on a Nickelodeon show called Unfabulous. Tinashe, who's a pop star, was in the cast with me. Ariana Grande went on to do the show on Broadway. Like, huge names that have come out of this show. And I was a part of it. And even then, I did a lot of this in my life, but feeling like I was just lucky to be there, or like I fooled them into thinking I was talented enough instead of recognizing it as a reflection of me, as I mentioned earlier. But that shifted my whole, taught me that I could make how much money at 15 doing what I was already good at. But it changed my trajectory, and I ended up going back to school my junior and senior year to graduate with my class. But I like left all my honors classes. I was like, I had no academic inclination, mostly because the hurt, and I very much disassociated. But it gave me a pathway that I had never considered before, and that was to actually like pursue this as a career. It's been a wild ride ever since then. A lot of offers in the room, which again should have been affirmation of my ability, and instead it was fooled them again, you know. Right after high school, I was auditioning for a theater company in Southern Utah, and at my callback, my audition was on Friday, my callback was on Saturday. The choreographer pulled me aside on our break between sessions and was like, hey, I own my own dance company in Salt Lake City. I have a dancer who needs to go home to take care of his sick mother. Like, are you interested in replacing him? And I was like, me? Little old 19-year-old me? And I was like, I mean, yeah. And he was like, the thing is, the season starts on Monday. You'd have to move to Utah tomorrow. And I was like, oh, okay. So my best friend and I packed up my car, drove 12 hours to Salt Lake City, and I joined a dance company on an absolute like overnight whim. But I have this motto now, along with Live Your Delusion: hesitate and you die, especially being in New York City. If you think you can clear the traffic, just go. If you hesitate and you stop, that's when the car hits you. And my career has been a lot of don't hesitate. Like, here's the offer. Do you want it? Yes, we're on our way. And I think that's a blessing because it doesn't give you time to overthink it. I didn't have the option of being like, ooh, should I, shouldn't I? It was like, you're going to school. I went to community college because I didn't know what I wanted to do after high school. And I was like, you're a dance major, English minor. Why wouldn't you go take the dance training? That's what you're going to school for. So hesitate and you die. Yes, let's go. Moving to Utah. And I never looked back. And it's been such a blessing. I laugh now thinking about being a surgeon because I mean I look at my friends who have just now finished some of their medical schooling and are now getting to live the life that they want to, like we were talking about earlier. And I've gotten to travel the world in those same 10 years and see places that I have only ever dreamed of, the Great Wall of China, the Taj Mahal, like seeing things that you only ever see in history books and textbooks. And I've stood there. It's such a blessing. I'm very grateful for the trajectory of my life. All of the yeses, and I'm grateful now for all of the nos because of where they put me, you know?
Yeah. I think it's so beautiful and so human the way you present your personal history. And I think so many people feel connected to this experience of, if you honestly look at your life and the times people said yes, or they said, oh my goodness, I want a piece of your shine. You're shining so brightly, right? I want to direct that over here. Come be a part of my project or be my friend, whatever it is, be my partner. And in those moments, it's so easy to reflexively try to diminish ourselves instead of giving ourselves that credit for, wow, I've got something special. And that's not selfish. That's actually saying, okay, this is interesting. Maybe I should direct my attention here and grow this so that it's even better. Like you said, I'll go and get dancing training and get experience. And then I'll go see the world, right? And everyone else, sorry, you're stuck in med school. Sorry about you.
They're probably making way more money than I am now, so who knows who made the right choice here.
But we talk, it takes us back to this idea, the difference between profession and purpose and passion and what is fulfilling for you. And so here you are, despite some limiting beliefs that you've generously and vulnerably shared with us, you did lean into your yeses. You did take those chances, those risks, and had amazing experiences. You were on Hamilton, which we are a big Hamilton household. I sent you in my opinion, adorable clip of my son dressed up for Halloween, as King
Yes.
George and and I'm in the background, character, because he's 6. So he's falling out of character while we're filming. And so I'm kind of jokingly keeping him in character because he loves to just sternly stand there and point his sword. I'm like, oh, I'll go get those dirty Americans that think they can get away from me. So I love how you leaned into embracing your passion. And yet, and this is what happens when we lean into our passions, we may still find that a piece is missing. And you found that, I've climbed the mountain. I'm in Hamilton. I mean, if you're not I'm not an envious person by nature. I just simply am not. I don't have time for it. But I think if you love theater and you love performance, how can you not think, oh my gosh, he's in Hamilton. That's the dream, right? Oh my, I'd love to do that. But even in that position, you felt something was missing and you saw opportunities to make things better, not only for yourself, but for your colleagues that were on this journey with you in theater. Tell us more about your experiences over the course of your career, the realities, and why that really inspired you to lean into your current endeavor, your passion project of creating Places, Please.
So I came to this realization probably about a year ago. I have never been in this industry because I was passionate about it. I was in it because I was good at it and I booked jobs and I kept working. And at a certain point, well, that's what I've committed to doing. So then I'm just going to keep auditioning. And then, oh, this job comes up. But it wasn't because I was like, I mean, I have friends that could tell you who won every Tony in what year and what was on Broadway when and what songs are from what musical. I am not that kid. Like I said, when I booked 13, I didn't even know who Jason Robert Brown was. Sorry, Jason. I know you now, but I didn't at the time because it wasn't my passion. I think that's why when I booked Hamilton, we talk about the external validation and accolades. It didn't feel like an achievement. Like, yes, I booked the show, but I was so stressed during that rehearsal process. The caliber of the show, the intention of the show, the minutia of that show that all gets put on you at one time while you learn this beast of a musical, it wrecked me. I didn't feel like I had made this achievement. I felt like I was drowning. My hair fell out in clumps. I will never forget washing my hair and just feeling it like in my hands and being like, I've never lost this much hair before. The stress was so overwhelming. And that's not specifically Hamilton. That is that's the industry. Whether it's musical theater, whether it's TV film, whether it is whatever it is, the expectation of excellence, which, yes, we're at the top of our craft, but my catchphrase these days for Places Please, which I'll get to, is the show must go on, but at what cost? And I've paid a lot of cost throughout this life, whether that is not that I feel like my dad died so that I could get 13, although there was years where I grappled with that. It kind of felt like any good news was going to be accompanied by bad. You start to wait for the other shoe to drop because anytime something good happens, there is a sacrifice, right? And that's kind of how booking Hamilton felt. I was like, well, what am I? Like, I would call my mom every day and be like, I don't know that I want to do this. I don't know that if this is how the industry is going to be. I don't think that I want to be a part of it. It is now at the point, and I was 2019, so I was 28. I was getting to that point of what is worth sacrificing these days? Like, what part of me is worth the pursuit of this thing that I'm not even sure I like doing? I love performing. I love dancing. I love dressing up as somebody else and getting, I think that there's a catharsis in performance because for 3 hours a night, I get to be somebody else. Whatever's going on in my life, I get to portray somebody else's story and step out of my own world. And that is so healing in so many ways. But I looked around and I saw how much, when you're on tour, or when, not even just like in the US, but traveling abroad for work. I worked in multiple theme parks all over the world. I worked on cruise ships. I did the international tour of Hamilton after I did the US tour of Hamilton. I went to Australia to do the show. Part of the sacrifice of the pursuit of this dream, this goal, this ideal is time away from loved ones. We miss holidays, we miss birthdays, we miss weddings, we miss funerals, we miss births, we miss nieces and nephews growing up. We miss so many aspects of life that people outside of the industry take for granted. I haven't had a weekend. We work 6 days a week except for Mondays. Monday is our off day. I haven't had a normal Saturday, Sunday weekend in relation to my job ever. Like since going to school. When you go to school Monday through Friday, that's the last time I really had an actual weekend. And weekends are our busiest time. On tour, you do 5-show weekends, 1 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, Monday off, and you're back in the race. And if you are on tour, Monday becomes your travel day, which means that you don't actually, anybody who's ever been to an airport or been on a 5-hour bus ride knows that that's not a day off, but that's now your day off, according to them. And that is legal and okay and part of the union and part of the expectation of the industry. But the wear and tear of that on the human psyche, the human experience, also my day doesn't start until 7 p.m. for an 8 o'clock show. And then we're under these bright lights when everyone else is winding down and their circadian rhythm is calming them down for the day. We're in broad daylight, it would seem, doing the most physical activity. And then after the show, you get home, and like in Hamilton, I burned 1,200 calories a show. So I had to eat after the show, which means that you have the second boost of energy. And now we're watching a movie to wind down. And next thing you know, it's 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And then you sleep until noon the next day. You get up and you do it all over again. Your whole schedule is the polar opposite of everybody else's. It's lonely. It's alienating. It is rewarding and triumphant and beautiful self-discovery and breakthroughs. But it is also setback and letdown and loneliness and grief and so many. The dichotomy of the life is something that I don't think enough people talk about, and not just that of performers, but the dichotomy of life in general. That's why the show must go on, but at what cost? Like, yes, glitz, glamour, red carpets, opening night parties, travel, boats. If you look at my Instagram, I'm on a boat constantly, it seems. But also, I don't see my mom for a whole year. My niece is 5 years old and I've seen her 4 times since she was born. Like there's so much that comes with that. And I'm the firmest believer that 2 things can be true. That something can be 13. The point of my life when I booked that show, it was the highest and the lowest simultaneously that I had ever felt. We spend so much time chasing happiness, but happiness, if there's one thing Inside Out taught me, is that joy can come from sadness, and the 2 things can exist at the same time. And all of that of these years of doing this and seeing how an industry that just takes and takes and takes and asks so much of the people that are on the ground doing it with little care or resolve for their humanity behind it. I was like, I talk about this quite a bit. I was having post-pandemic, we came back and obviously the world was in such overturn and there was so much adjustment, and we went from being so alienated and alone to now back to performing in front of 2,000 people, and it felt claustrophobic. And I had had my first panic attack while on tour. I'd never had one in my life. And there I am backstage, hyperventilating, freaking out, like, prepping for my next cue, being like, I have to, like, the show must go on, as I'm like, absolutely falling apart. And I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, and I was dressed like a freaking colonial soldier with a tricorn hat on. I'm like, what is my life right now? This is actually insane. I'm falling apart, and I'm dressed like this. And I was like, this would make a hilarious TV show of the true life of what it looks like, not from the audience perspective, the real life in behind the box, in the wings. Once we leave the theater, there's so much of my life that isn't reflected at work, right? We do so many things outside of that building. Audiences don't know about that life. They see my bio in the program and my headshot and the show that we perform, and that's my life. So often people are like, oh my gosh, you were in Hamilton. I'm like, yeah. And I have all these other things, that I do, that I am, that I'm worthy of. And it gets boiled down to what we do, not who we are. And so I wanted, me and my writing partner, she was one of the stage managers on tour with me. She's still a stage manager, but on a different show now. And has worked in many capacities of this industry. We realized between the 2 of us, we have over 40 years of lived working experience in this industry that has nothing to do with what the audience sees. And we decided to pour that into telling the stories of the humans behind the Broadway magic. Our stories never get told. I go out on stage and I'm playing Charles Lee, or I'm playing King George, or I'm playing Lafayette Jefferson, but Wesley Ryan never gets reflected in front of that audience. We realized very quickly the separation from the audience perspective. This is another thing that I want to touch on in this show. We had to cancel a show while we were in Texas because it was multifold. One of those freak ice storms went through. There was ice across the pavement. One of the women in our show, her tires froze to her driveway. She could not leave. On top of that, we had COVID and we had people dropping like flies. And so the venue waited way too long to announce that we had to cancel the show. And then when they did announce it, they said the Angelica Tour couldn't secure enough cast members to do tonight's performance, so we have to cancel. Instead of this nature event and lack of infrastructure has caused this problem. So the people who, and I understand disappointment, but people took to the internet and on our personal Instagram pages were commenting horrible things about how, and again, from a place of disappointment, I try to be as, not that we have to deal with it, but as understanding. It's another aspect of the show, an element of the show that I want to incorporate. I understand that you're disappointed that you've waited many years to see this show and the disappointment of not getting to see that. But if you can't take a step back and realize that there is human cost behind that and a reason why, it's not like we were like, I don't want to do the show tonight. Forget the people in the audience. You know, there was real life danger. Well, we were willing to risk it. We drove from wherever. We drove an hour. Okay. You willing to risk your life for Hamilton is not me willing to risk my life for Hamilton. That is my job.
Yeah.
It is a job first and foremost. And I think audiences, no matter what art they're consuming, I mean, that's part of the celebrity culture, right? We see these people on screen, we see these interviews, we see their social media, and all of a sudden we think that we know them, that we have a piece of them. And so we feel comfortable commenting on people's bodies, commenting on people's experiences, commenting on things that we have no idea. You know, I think about some of the lowest times in my life where I have not always acted as the kindest, nicest human being. It is not an excuse for my behavior, but if you knew that my dad died a week before or a day before, you might give me a little bit more grace. You know, I don't believe that many people are innately wicked or innately evil.
Yeah.
If we saw, and that's one of the, like, this TV show is a perspective piece on humanity, and not just for the performers, but for the crew, the company as a whole, all of the cogs in this machine that make up this thing and make it run, what our individual lives go through, and what, you know, somebody who I call one of the characters the perceived villain in this TV show, because when you get to her episode, you realize, oh, that's just a hurt human who has no support. When people are lashing out in that way, it is usually from a lack of support. It is not from a place of wickedness. It is learned behavior along the way of defense mechanism. And if, you know, I know that I'm the villain in somebody's story, no matter how kind, no matter how caring, no matter how empathetic, compassionate I try to be, I have harmed people in my life. I am the villain. And if that person goes and talks to somebody else who hasn't had a negative interaction with me, all of a sudden I get labeled this thing, whether or not that is true to my personhood. And now if I respond to that name calling, if someone's going to call me a bitch and now I'm going to start acting like one, that's a defense mechanism. Because if you're going to call me a wicked witch, then I'm going to be a wicked witch, right? You put that upon me, and now I'm going to step into those shoes. I am not wicked.
Yeah.
But I take that on based on that, like, outside factors that are placed upon us. And when you get to her episode and realize that there's a lot of grief in this show, there's a lot of not just death, but loss in so many capacities. And when you get to her episode and realize, oh, she is just a wounded child who never learned how to cope. And everyone else applies these things to her that now have become true for her because we get jaded, we get, you know, hardened. And if somebody were to, there's times where I wish somebody would have looked at me and my hurt and gone, what do you need? Instead of being like, he's an asshole. You know, now you label me this thing and I become that thing. There's so many instances of that in life where, like, going back to the two things can be true. Like, if we gave people a little more credit, if we gave people the same, and it stems from a place of not being able to give it to ourselves, first and foremost. The Bible says, you know, the golden rule is love your neighbor as yourself. But if you never learn how to love yourself, how can you love your neighbor? RuPaul says it. If you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love anybody else? And we take it and we laugh about it, and it's so silly and up here, but it's true. We're never taught how to love ourselves. I want this TV show to be a reflection. I don't care whether or not you like musicals, work in the entertainment industry, have any relation to it at all. The backdrop just happens to be musical theater. It is a perspective piece on humanity and how we can better support one another and support ourselves. And I like writing these characters has been so healing for me because there's so much of me in each of them, so much of us. I don't mean to exclude my writing partner. But it's me talking and I can't speak for her. But I hope that that audiences that watch this feel some part of their story reflected of like, wow, I did have to, even if it's not theater, I had to go to my corporate job the next day and put on a smiling face to get the job done because the show must go on. It may not be an actual show. It just happens to be in this TV show. You know, we do so much masking in life when we're not actors. actors just happen to mask for a living. And I think it's a perfect lens through which to tell these very human stories of all of the good that comes along with that, of working at that caliber and at that level of expertise, but also the loss, the grief, the setback, the imposter syndrome, the childhood trauma, the forgiveness of self and the forgiveness of others. Because a friend of mine said to me, we can only love Jesus as much as we love Judas. And I was like, whoa. Love is the coin, and you have to love the positives and the negatives, and that goes for the Judas of ourself. We sit in so much shame and guilt and grief when we do something wrong or when we harm somebody. If we can pour love into that side of our coin, it gets so much easier to pour love on the positive, and we don't teach people that. And I pray that this TV show is a learning lesson in that, as the way it has been for me, but outwardly for anybody who watches it.
Well, I can tell you it resonates so deeply with me. I can't wait to see it, and I want to be a part of any way I can of this creation. I love it. I love the trailer that you created that is available on your Instagram. People can look, and I also love the music. I don't know if that's music that was licensed elsewhere or that is specifically made for the TV show. I love the music you selected for the trailer that you've posted. And I have to say, listening to the way you frame this, it is so universal. And you escaped becoming a surgeon. Congratulations. But but I have to say, there are so many parallels to the life of medicine and the masking you have to do as a physician, as a nurse. You're working 12-hour shifts, or as a physician. I mean, there were times when I did 10 days of call in a row, when I had a pager on my hip, 10 days. 1 month, I had 14 days of call. I was covering 22 counties of humans as a neurologist. I was the only neurologist on call for 22 counties, many hospitals. You got to answer the call. You're their person, right? It doesn't matter how tired you are. And
Or
you
what's
not
going on in your
only,
personal life with your
right.
family, with
Oh,
your
I had
kids. Like,
babies. I had
yeah,
babies and businesses and all sorts of things
the show
going
must
on in
go
my
on.
life. The show must go on. So it resonates so deeply with me. So I'm so excited for you sharing this story. And I think that is the beauty, is that we all wear masks and we're all acting in one aspect of our lives or another, or potentially all of them. I think if you find yourself acting in all of them, that's kind of maybe a time for a temperature check and a
Yes, truly.
consideration of that. But we all, in some degree or in some aspect of our lives, do have to put on a show. And so I think it resonates so much. And I think your focus on getting behind the curtain, as you've said, and beyond the glitz and glamour, and focusing on the humans and the cost of any decision we make is so important. And it takes me back to that moment when you shared about the decision you made, which, if I was your mom, because I've got kids and they are nearing that age that you were then, and if I was your mom and you made that choice, I'd be doing a dance in my head of, oh, go see dad. But also at the same time, I'd be really proud of you for not abandoning yourself in that moment and for saying, you know what? No, like, I deserved respect, and I'm not gonna just abandon myself in this moment. I can't do that right now. And I would have been really proud of you for that. And so I wonder, have you gotten to a place where you can forgive yourself for that moment?
Now, yes, it's taken me a long time. It probably took me another decade to do so. I am not responsible for the choices that man made, and he was not a bad man by any means. He was not, I wouldn't call him an absent father. despite him not always being able to be there. His addiction is a beast, and it doesn't care what you have going on or who is in your life or who it hurts, even if the person does, you know? He died very young. He's only 48. And I think that I had to let go of the responsibility that I was carrying.
Mm-hmm.
And that took me a long time to do. Even if I didn't necessarily blame myself, I could look at it objectively and say, well, I wasn't the alcoholism, you know, but, you know, you think about all the times that I'd be over at his house and I could have said something, especially when I got to an age where like verbalizing and recognizing patterns of behavior, you know, to go like, can you stop drinking? Or like, if you can't do it for you, can you do it for me? I feel like he might be ruminating that in his head, but to hear it from your child, like you know, you do that. Maybe it would have made a difference. Maybe he would have changed. Maybe, but the maybe doesn't do anything for the truth of the matter. It doesn't change the facts. And it may not have mattered what I did. And so the what if game is such a slippery slope, you know? And I had to let that go. And like, now it's just, I tell people that I meet and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry for that loss. I'm like, honestly, it's part of my story now. Like it's so, I don't want to say normalized, but I've lived with it for 19 years, you know? I think my 30th birthday was the hardest, and it hit me a lot harder than I expected it to, because having him pass away at 15, my 30th birthday is now the halfway point where the rest of my life, the majority of my life, I will have lived without him. And that's the hardest part. And like, you know, you think about, we've lost so many family members. There was a decade from 8 to 18 where we lost an immediate family member. We have so little family left. It's part of the sacrifice for all the good in my life, is that there's been so much heartache and challenge and loss that people don't see. They see Hamilton and they see traveling the world, and yes, it is that. But there's been so much more than that. And I think that that's why this TV show is so important. Not even for the telling of my story, although it is reflected, but like, we all carry these things. That is universal human experience, no matter what you do, no matter who you are. You know, I think that it took me a long time to accept the trials and the setback for what they taught me. And I very much feel like all of it has been preparation for this now moment. This TV show is the first thing that I'm genuinely passionate about in this career. And that is the blessing to me. Having spent so much of my life not feeling that, being like, I should want this a little more. You know what I mean? If I'm doing this thing, like, the people would kill to be in my shoes. And now I'm like, this is all I can think about. I wake up thinking about it. I go to bed thinking about it. I'm constantly putting pieces together of like, which part of my story and my writing partner's story can go into which character, and how can all of those puzzle pieces come out and overlap to build this world that we're trying to tell. And it's led to so much more. It's led to this production company. It's led to this youth arts outreach program that I want to build. I want the TV show to show the various subsects and factions of this industry that exist, that the audience never gets to see. They just see us performers. They never see props. They never see carpentry. They never see lighting, sound, stage management, company management. You know, they never see any of these people. They're all working alongside us, but you never see their jobs. They're not front-facing jobs. But to show all the possibilities of what can go on in this industry, and then have an arts after-school program that can teach kids some of these trade skills, teach them carpentry to get into that world, set building, set design, props, teach them electrical work to do lighting and sound, and like fix a mic, build a mic, do all these things. Even if they don't pursue it as a career in the arts, they can take those skills into their homes and that table's broken, we can fix that instead of hiring somebody to do it or buying a new one. Oh, that light went out, we need to swap this outlet out. I can do that. Give them tangible trade skills that they can take into their lives. I live in the South Bronx in New York, and I guarantee you none of these kids have seen a Broadway show unless they went on a field trip at some point, if their school even had connection to that. They'd sooner call me names walking down the street than recognize me as a human being. You know what I mean? But I think that if they had, that stems from a place of not being able to relate to it because it is so far removed from their existence. If we can bridge that gap and show them that there's a space for them here, they're welcome here, there's a skill here, there's money here that they can make a living off of and raise the next generation of Black, brown, queer, neurodivergent, disabled, on the spectrum, young people up in this industry that will make it a better one than the version that I got. Because capitalism is the name of the game. But when we talk about the cost of what it takes to do this thing, the people at the top never care. And no matter what industry, I'm not even making it about the entertainment industry. The people at the top don't care what it costs you. They want it done. And that falls on the backs of the people that love this thing, love to do the thing they're doing. And then it makes you not love it so much. And then it makes it harder to come to work every day. And then it makes it not the joyous community that it was, but this like hardship almost. And I think that if we can, the best way to affect the change, as I always say, is to be it, but it's also to pass on a better version to the next generation while preparing them for the truth of the matter. This TV show is the truth of the matter. There's so many things wrong with the system in which we live. And I've been waiting for years to be welcomed into a space that was already doing the change, to like be brought in and do it and like join the cause, but you watch any movie and the hero of the story is the person that sets out to do it themselves. And so that's what we're setting out to do, is build a production company. It's called Our Way Original. RWO are my initials. But it's Our Way, the letter R. Also play on words to do things our way. Differently than I've ever seen it done in this industry, where yes, we want it to be successful. Yes, we want it to be profitable, but not at the expense of the people who were asking to do the thing. Never profit over people. And if it can be done differently, when it's done differently, there will be no company that can say it can't be done. If you're choosing not to, it is a choice. And people may not want to work for you after that. And that is a consequence of your actions, but it is your actions at the top. Because that was one of the issues in this industry. We would bring concerns to the company that told us after the pandemic that Broadway is back better. We are here. Whatever you need, tell us, and we're here for you. Okay, we need this, this, and this. Oh, well, not that. You have to take that up with your union. I understand what the union is there for. It's to make sure that we don't get absolutely destroyed down here. It's the bare minimum of what you have to give us. As a company, you can go above and beyond that, and you're choosing not to. And that is the choice. I want to choose to do it. You need this? Yes. Obviously, figure it's not that easy. I'm not going to pretend that it's immediate wave your wand and done, done, done. But let's have a conversation. How could that look? How could we make that happen? Because if people are supported, they are less likely to lash out. When we live in community, when we live in harmony, when we live in village mindset, we're less likely to lash out, to act in opposition of that. And when somebody does, it's easier to pinpoint, okay, here's a break in the chain. What's going on? How can we better help you? What do you need to fill in and mend that? Because it's obviously something that you're not receiving. Not that it's anyone else's responsibility, but there's some break and disconnect there. So let's find it. Let's get back to the human community village aspect of healing so that we don't feel alone. They say that there's a loneliness epidemic amongst men, but it's because we don't talk about our feelings. That's why you're lonely, because you don't realize how many people exist in the same mindset that you are. And that in and of itself, not that I want anyone else to feel the way that I've ever felt, but knowing somebody else does makes me feel not alone in that.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is connection, even through the heartache and trial of it. It's the joy amongst the pain or the sadness that I talked about earlier.
And that's the way storytelling, so many of the impactful stories are quite moving and sad and heartbreaking. But if we're pretending that life is all rainbows and unicorns, then that's not real. And
It's not
that just
real.
makes us feel more isolated.
And like you're doing something wrong by not having that at all times. I felt that so much in my life. Why am I not happy? Like I should be happy. And now I'm feeling guilt and shame about not being happy, and then that spiral starts. And now I'm internal and reclusive and alienating, which then just perpetuates the disconnect and the unhappiness and the sadness. And I think that I have learned so much over the last few years, both in and out of therapy, but also recognizing where like I have my patterns I've gotten in my own way of choosing to look at the wrong thing. And I'm not talking about toxic positivity. I'm not saying everything is sunshine and rainbows when the storm is happening. You know what I mean? But a lot of times we ask for growth, we pray for growth, we're manifesting growth, we want more. But how do things grow? Sometimes we ask for growth and God gives us a storm.
Yeah.
Because your branches need to weather that storm to be resilient and strong. I'm thinking about these plants behind me. I want to get them outside so that they get a little wind resistance and can strengthen up, because that's how we build resilience. That's how we build that strength. It doesn't come from everything being handed to us. It comes from weathering the storms, and that waters our growth. And I think that I've reframed a lot of my low points as watering. The loss of my father, no, I would not wish that upon anybody, but it watered growth for me to get to this point where I'm at now, to be able to tell and share this story and build this production company that looks different, built on love and community and empathy and compassion. It'll be profitable because the people who work for you, they'll work harder for you if they're supported. They won't leave. There won't be turnover, which costs companies money. If you take care of the people that are working for you, they'll stay and they'll work harder for you. As a worker, I would, we leave when we feel like we're not getting what we need out of a situation, because it's a transaction. I work hard for you in exchange for money, support, whatever it is. And if I'm not getting that, then I leave. And now you have to pay somebody else and my severance and all the things. You know what I mean? Like there's so many. It just seems like a no-brainer to me, but like, what do I know, right?
Well, it's interesting because in medicine, we have a similar systemic issues, and people who work in medicine tend to be very loyal, just like as you are describing about your industry, and they worked really hard to get where they are. So the last thing they want to do is just jump ship. They want to help keep it afloat. And the thing I think many people don't understand is when we as humans, because we're very resistant to change in general as people, when we make a big change, it's very rarely something that was taken lightly. And you usually have been pushed to the point of you either die where you are or you risk death out in the wild, right? Those are the two options. You can't stay here anymore is very often what happens before you leave that situation. And I think in general, we in our relationships as employers in general, if we understood how to hold one another in community and in partnership and friendship and family better, and not push one another to the breaking point, which is something I'm getting from your project. Don't push us to the breaking point. We will work so hard for you, but support us, help us be our best self, and we will in turn help you be your best self. And that requires support. It also requires, to get the people within the system that will make it the best it can be. Those people have to see themselves represented in the system. And I know that's something that you are really passionate about working towards, is improving representation. When you were choosing to work in theater and in media, did you have someone that you felt represented you in media, or is that something that has inspired you to this point to try to create a space that gives kids and gives young people that representation to see themselves in the future in those roles?
I think the short answer growing up is no. There wasn't a lot of, especially being a mixed race human being, I have never lived in a black or white world. I have lived in a black and white world. I don't live, one of my other mottos is always and never or. It is never me or you. It is me and you. It is never this or that. It is and that. This and that, And one of the problems was growing up, the representation that was there was always the sidekick or the comedic relief or the secondary character or the person that died. It was never the one that got to fall in love and live happily ever after. It was never the one that thrived and triumphed and was at the forefront of the story. A lot of my life I was too black to be white and too white to be black, so then I was neither somehow. And that is not individual to me. That is the story of so many people who live in that dichotomy of two different cultures or races or ethnic backgrounds. I think something like Hamilton put it on the map of how to do things differently. Yes, we're telling white history, but we're going to tell it through the lens of these black and brown bodies, which is a whole other commentary that I could make about how black and brown bodies are used. But the TV show will talk about that.
Okay, well, stay tuned. I'm curious, but I don't want to do any spoilers.
And it's not a spoiler. And I try to. Whenever I talk about the TV show, I don't like to give away plot points, and not that this is a plot point. More, it's just like I like to talk about my experience in an industry because my experience is what is reflected in this TV show. So, it's not really giving away a plot point to tell you that the main character's dad dies in the beginning of this thing, because it's very much my relationship with 13 and that experience. But talking about it from a personal perspective, I think that in an industry that is primarily and predominantly run by white men, cisgendered, heterosexual white men, the ask of those on the ground with something like Hamilton is asking a lot of black and brown bodies without care or regard for what that does to those black and brown bodies along the way. Really, it's care or regard for any of the bodies, but with a show like that where it is predominantly black and brown, that becomes an even more necessary thing to put a magnifying glass up to. The musical they're performing in the TV show, the currently fictional musical they're performing in the TV show, is like Prohibition era speakeasy grungy musical, gospel jazz musical. I say currently fictional because we want to also be working on and building that musical to then put on Broadway starring the people from the TV show. To show that these people that are in TV and film do this 8 times a week and can do this 8 times a week. I will not be hiring non-performing actors for these roles. And it will not be there will be celebrity cameos, but they're only allowed to play themselves. Like, I want Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo to be featured in episodes 7 and 8, but they'll be Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo because we live in the real world. This is supposed to reflect real life. It's not a fictional world. But I also want to elevate the unknowns of the world, of this world, that are doing it. So many TV and film stars get to jump into our industry and stunt cast and make more money than I do to do the show 8 times a week for 3 months or a month. But then the caliber suffers because they're not built to do this. That's not what they do. They're not actually singers. They're not actually dancers. But I don't get to jump into their world and be in a feature film at the drop of a hat just because, I want to, or I want to try my hand at that. It's not that easy. So I want to make a commentary on that. But to go back to representation, I think that there is so much take from this industry, any industry, but specifically my experience in this industry. And I didn't always see people that look like me. I was speaking to a friend of mine, beautiful soprano. We met working at Disney at the same time. She was in the Aladdin show. She is a person who uses a wheelchair. She was the voice of Dahlia in Disney's Wish movie. Her name is Kumi, Jennifer Kumiyama. She informed me that when it comes to disability, 20% of the population lives with a disability, whether it be visible or non-visible. 3% of that 20% is reflected in media. And of that 3%, only 0.3% are actually portrayed by people with disabilities, which is outrageous to me. You think about something like Wicked, the fact that we have the first two actresses who use wheelchairs in the roles of Nessa Rose, a character who uses a wheelchair, is crazy to me. The fact that a TV show, a musical about skin color, has its first full-time Black alphabet on Broadway, who's a friend of mine. We worked together on Hamilton. Lencia Cabetta is a star. But the first, that is crazy. It's a show about skin color. And there have been other actresses, Black actresses that have played the role. Also the Brittany, who she was the first Black Glinda on Broadway. We're way too late in the game to still be having these firsts. And if no one else is going to actually take the time to pour into those communities, to amplify those voices, then it's going to have to be me. It's going to have to be us. It's going to have to be this story. One of the elements of the musical that I want to incorporate like sign language as choreography. There are few, I should say. There aren't enough, but there are a number of venues that are doing work like that. Deaf West in California, just some incredible productions where, like they did Spring Awakening, they've done Pippin, they've done many a show where that is incorporated as part of the experience, not as an afterthought or a token hire, or because that's the other thing. Any of these BIPOC, queer, disabled characters that we see are usually like we could put that here. There's our token. We tick that box. See, we're inclusive. Where I want to see a business, an industry, a show that is built on that premise, that incorporates those stories, those people, because they are so easily excluded. Really, not representation of the one, but representation of, wow, there is a world that's possible if we just take the extra step to include. And not because we have to, but because there's so many stories that go untold because there is no seat at the table. And so if you're not going to create a seat, then we're going to build our own table. And one of my videos that's gotten some traction, I said, if no one's going to give us a place on that stage, then I'm going to build my own stage, damn it. Like, we need to build the world we want to see. And there are so many, the outpouring of love and support on that video, on my posts, on all the things has been so overwhelming because there are so many people that are craving that. And it is so much bigger than me at this point. Yes, it started out as me writing a show because I wanted to see characters that I felt reflected in. And it's turned into this like collective healing that I want to bring about to show that like there are people. I spoke about this earlier, but I consider myself a bridge person. If we can connect the dots to all of these companies that are doing it, we are the majority at that point. And if there's more of us doing it than aren't, a lot of people look at Wicked and they go, I'm Elphaba, I'm the underdog. No, baby, you're Glinda, who benefits from the system and who sits back and waves her little fake wand when you think you're out here changing the world. No, you're part of the status quo. And what I've realized throughout all my experience working in this industry is that the status quo is mediocrity. And we are protecting mediocrity, and I'm tired of it, while having excellence required of us. The system is mediocre at best, while requiring excellence of anybody who takes part in that. And then you wonder why people are like, wait a second, like the bubble bursts, like we've been bamboozled. No matter what industry you work in, the backdrop again of Places Please just happens to be musical theater. Set it anywhere, and it's the same story. It's just slightly less musical.
It's less fun, which is why we need musicals, why we love television. And when you before we wrap up with something fun for our listeners to get a little bit more of your expertise, it reminds me of what we've talked a lot about today, about vulnerability and being transparent and just showing up as yourself. Whether you have a disability, whether you don't identify with the crowd and you might have some fear in coming as who you are, that it resonates with people when you show up as yourself. You have no idea who you're putting a hand out to in the darkness when you show up as yourself. You may not see them in front of you, but there's someone who's reaching, and you may be the hand that grabs them in a really tough moment. And it makes me think of something quite silly, but I think actually there's a reason that it was so viral, was a clip that you had on social media where your cat, was it Ardo?
Odie,
I changed his name in my mind. Now I can't. Now it's like, well, now he's Ardo forever. When Odie jumps up on you when you're doing an audition, and your sweet cat, who's beautiful, by the way, such an interesting breed, it just keeps jumping on you, and you're so patient and sweet because the cat just wants to be with you. But the funny thing was, you posted that experience with your cat. And I think we're so focused on making the perfect reel, the perfect life, the perfect whatever, the perfect relationship, that we might be caught off guard when we share the B-roll. And that's what resonates with people. But we want to see the real you, and we want to see not how you look when you're perfect and you're acting, but how you look when you're like, oh, sweet cat, just let dad finish my work. You know what I mean? When you're having that sweet interaction, that's what connects us as people. Yes. And that's what you're trying to do with the musical. In part, you have many, many things that you're trying to portray. But I think that human connection and experience, even in this circumstance where it's between a human and a non-human, but that experience of connection is really what you're sharing. And I love that. And I love the vehicle with which you're doing it. So hats off to you. I'm so excited for it.
That's so, I mean, I posted it on the whim of just to post a blooper reel and be silly. And the internet took it by storm. I have to say, across all my social medias, even as other videos of mine have gone viral and things, the internet has been so kind to me. It is such a blessing. I get no hate on any of my videos. Though I got a comment actually just a couple of days ago of this man who was like, as an equity actor, like I couldn't be less interested in this. And I was like, I'm really sorry that you felt the need to say that, because this is somebody talking about their dream. And like, to me, it was an obvious projection of where you're at in your life. Sorry for whatever's gone on that made you feel like you had to spread negativity instead of just like keeping scrolling. But that's the worst comment I've gotten in any of this. And I think it's because of the transparency of it all. How do you hate on somebody who is being vulnerable? I mean, people can, but again, that's a reflection of their projection, and you can't take that personally. You got to that's one of the things, the thick skin of this industry is to not take people's perceptions and their projections personally. But the internet has been so wonderful and so kind, and has introduced me to so many, including you, has gotten us sitting here today, all because of videos of me that I've shared and posted. Kristen Chenoweth just followed me a couple days ago on Instagram. I was like, what? Like, Wayne Brady likes my post. Like celebrity eyes have been on this, and I'm like, it's wild. And we didn't reach I had a Kickstarter campaign that we had set up to raise funds for pre-production for Places Please, and we didn't reach our goal, which No disappointment there. We raised $13,800 from people all over the globe who believed in me and this project enough to contribute their hard-earned money. That is such a blessing. And I'm actually glad we didn't get the money because, I mean, I wish we hit our goal, but because we didn't, and I would have owed those people the things that they pledged for, So like it really for us, but I'm so bad at asking for no, not anymore. I was so bad at asking for help, and I was so bad at like discussing and talking about money. And having a post about this Kickstarter campaign broke me of that. I had to do it every single day and keep up with the algorithm and post this and ask for this. And if you can donate and do the thing that was so out of my comfort zone, then I'm like, oh, baby, anything's possible. It was really lovely in that regard. And that is what I took from that experience was the power that we have if we just get out of our own way and our own limiting beliefs and about ourselves, because there are so many times, even if they've been put upon us, we then upkeep them and maintain them and impose them on ourselves, and that is the danger, right? That's what I'm working on, breaking myself of that, and hopefully can help more people do that. I've started some like life career coaching, just to help people live their delusion and figure out what their purpose and calling is. What's the major dream? Okay, what are little steps we can take to get there? But if you don't even believe that your dream is possible, then you're never going to try. And I'm guilty of that for so long until this project. So I'm so grateful. An attitude of gratitude gets us a long way in this life. It helps with so many elements, even the negative. If I can still be grateful, I still have a roof over my head, I've got food in the fridge, and I've got pets and friends and family and support. Despite all of that, it just like, it's a minor perspective shift that really aids in our wellness and well-being and alignment in this crazy thing called life.
Well, and you bring up such an important concept of what is fear, right? Is it really the thing you're afraid of, or is it this big monster that we've been feeding? And that old saying, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. And so that wasn't a failure. That was something that was strengthening you and preparing you for the next step. And you've talked a lot on your social media. I want people to go and follow you on social media and listen to your joy rides, I think is what you call them. And when you talk about things like patience and the process and your relationship, we haven't had time to talk about it today on the show, but it's so important. Go there and listen to Wesley discuss his relationship with God and his spirituality, and their spirituality, because I think it's so, you have, as you've discussed many times today, this really beautiful and balanced ability to sit in that gray zone and to be patient and to recognize the gifts of the moment. And then also to give yourself grace when you don't feel patient, because those moments happen every day too. And to just accept it all and to just prepare yourself. And you've talked about this too. I'm not lying in wait. And oh no, now we're getting to Hamilton. I'm not lying in wait. I promise I didn't plan this.
No, it's perfect.
I'm ready, right? I'm not lying in wait. I'm prepared. I'm readying myself. And that's what this period is for. How can people follow you so that as you are laying out the next steps, as well as presenting all of the really wonderful things that you are releasing every day in your community, how can people make sure that they can participate in this amazing project you have with Places Please, as well as be a part of building that community?
I am on both Instagram and TikTok at Wesley Ryan, WesleyRyann. The double N is important. Wesley Ryan with one N was already taken, for the record. So we've got creative. And we are also at Places Please TV on Instagram. We'll be posting there about public audition notices, because we really want as many people to come forward for this project and bring on as many unknowns into this world. turn on those notifications so you see when my posts come up. I will be, as I have been, continuing posting little snippets about the show and kind of giving people more insight into what that looks like. Some of my comps I've been saying are like, think Euphoria meets Smash. So it's dark, grungy, gritty, dramatic, but also musical theater and behind the scenes lives, or like the Pitt, the medical drama, but like make it Broadway. So you see kind of that world. But yeah, follow me on social media. I will be discussing a lot of things. I've got a couple different series, like the Joyride that you mentioned. I'm starting this coaching business. I will be very active on the socials. And eventually, when we are ready to be at another point of whether it's starting another Kickstarter campaign or having another mode of funding, I'll be posting about that all over those social medias. So keep an eye out there. And if anybody knows any New York CPAs, send them my way. Trying to structure this business and do it properly from the get-go so that there is no like backtracking and that we are really setting ourselves up for success. I firmly believe that the foundation is so important, whether you make that biblical or just human. Having the foundation built on solid ground that is immovable and shakable and penetrable. I think that's what the waiting period that we were talking about, that's what it does. It refines us and sets us up for success. If the blessing comes before we're ready, we drop it. If you're not strong enough to hold the weight of all that you're asking for, and I'm asking for a lot right now. There is a lot that I am lifting up and trying to bring to life. And to God be the glory every step of the way. But if we're not strong enough, we drop it. So you don't want it before you're prepared. You don't want it before the foundation's built, because if it comes too early, we can't hold it. And there have been a number of times in my life where, I've looked back and been like, well, why didn't I get on that TV show? Or why didn't I get that thing? And then you hear what this industry has done to young people. And I'm like, well, that's why I wasn't strong enough to withstand that. I would have crumbled. I would have fallen apart. I would have been taken, used, abused. I was too curious. I was too, and if you're surrounded by yes people who don't actually have your well-being in place, that is when life has been worse, And so I'm like, now I can stand in my wholeness and my fullness and go, boundary, not okay with me. I will remove myself from the situation if this continues. This will not stand here. Or you've continued to show that this is not of a priority to you to respect, respond, to be part of what we're trying to maintain. So I can no longer have you with this company. I would have been strong enough to say that even 3 years ago. So this waiting period that I'm in, not that it's fun. I'm like, I want it now. But it is refinement. It is preparation. And it'll all happen in the aligned timing when it's supposed to. And I look forward to continuing to watch that blossom and grow and expand.
I have no doubt, and I'm so excited to watch along and help in any way we can. And I am sure our storytellers are just so inspired from hearing about your project today and your life. And like I said, just the way that you vulnerably and honestly embrace all of those facets of who we are as imperfect people living in an imperfect world, doing our best to take our little slice of it and try to make it the best we can. And when we work in community, that's when the opportunity, that's when you really get cooking. That's when really amazing things can happen. And that is what you are doing. I love it. I want to play a quick game before we let you go. You've been so generous with our time. But just some kind of quick questions, because I love Broadway. My kids love Broadway, family and friends. I grew up. So when I was little, I was fortunate enough that my mom, we lived in the Midwest growing up, but my mom always secretly wanted to live in New York City. She had this dream and she didn't do it, not yet. But so she would, a few times when I was growing up, we would do mom-daughter trips to New York City and we would go see a bunch of shows. That was the main purpose of the trip. And it was just life-changing, really. And then I ended up moving to New York City when I was 17, graduated high school early, living on couches because I was in the music industry. Conversation for another discussion.
Also.
And we could talk about the music industry when you're young and all the dangers, because it is rough. But So for me, I remember so much going. My mom got us front row tickets for Toni Braxton
Oh my
when
God.
when she was in Beauty and the Beast. So you talk about those, those brief stints on Broadway. But for me, as a singer, a young singer songwriter, that was just a pivotal moment. I couldn't believe it. And so many other things seeing. My favorite musical growing up was Jekyll and Hyde. I loved Jekyll and Hyde. I thought that was just, the vocals were just phenomenal in Jekyll and Hyde. I'm heartbroken it's not still running. So for people who, like me, love Broadway and they want some tips from an expert like yourself, I just want to ask a few quick questions if you're
Let's,
game.
let's do it.
So one of the big things starting off, okay, so I want to go see a show. Should I get tickets far in advance or do a last minute lottery, go to the ticket booth? What should I do?
I mean, that depends on how much money you got. There are always deals that go on. I was just looking today. There's Today Ticks. There's TKTS in Times Square. I recommend going to do that because you can get day of. You risk not being able to see what you want to see, but if you have an open schedule and just want to see something, getting to TKTS in Times Square under the big red stairs. Right when they open, and they will have like anywhere from $40 to $60 deals for certain shows. You can also rush and go to the theater day of and try to get tickets that way, which are often discounted. Obviously, if you want to see someone specific in a show, if you want to see Jeremy Jordan and Great Gatsby, make sure that you get your tickets ahead of time. I say there's no wrong way to do it. You could do it all of the ways. Get them ahead of time if you got the money like that, or if you want to, spend a little extra and do it that way, or rush. Or we have lotteries online now for so many venues where you could submit for a lottery. There's not obviously a guarantee that you win that, but there are plenty of options. The cheaper ones are to do day of rush lottery and TKTS. Or
Okay,
today.
those are good tips. Yeah, those are good tips. Well, and I can tell you the last time I was in New York, last time I was in New York, I saw Wicked with the actress that you
Oh,
spoke of
let's go. Yeah.
before. Yes. So that was amazing. I got to see her. But the time before that, I had tickets to the Great Gatsby and we got food. My husband and I got food poisoning and we were on lockdown in our room and we couldn't go. So we were on lockdown in our room and we couldn't go. So that was heartbreaking. And they were expensive because it had just opened. It was very expensive tickets and they were just like poof, they were just gone. So I'm going to try what you talked about before. I'm going to try just going the day of next time and
Yes.
see, make sure everyone's healthy and
Highly
ready to go.
recommend
So I love that.
yes, go do that one because they will, like I said, um, they will have discounted for many, many things. If you don't have something specific you want to see, next time you're here, go see Death Becomes Her. It
Okay.
is so funny. I love when a musical doesn't try to be the movie, but hits all the elements that you know and love about that movie. It's so funny and so silly and just like a ha 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 good time. Highly recommend Death Becomes Her.
Awesome. That is going on my list. And that was one of the things I was going to ask is what do you think people should definitely go to? Of course, Hamilton, but that's on everybody's list. So it's good to have extras.
And so expensive these days now that Leslie Odom Jr. is back in the show. My goodness. If you can swing it, more power to you because holy wow. Um, Death Becomes Her. I haven't seen Outsiders, but I have heard great things about it. Hades Town is an incredible
Yeah.
I just
And
saw
their
Great
actors are everywhere. Their
Oh,
actors are everywhere.
and
Yeah.
they're constantly swinging people in like that have either
Yeah.
done it or like I love their rotation of and just like the storytelling of it. It's so beautiful, and I love like Greek mythology and all of those things. So it's and Juliet is a fun, lighthearted run. All of the like 90s and early 2000s pop songs that we all know told through the lens of Romeo and Juliet, but if Juliet didn't decide to take her life when Romeo died, and it's like the story that she could have gone on to have if she hadn't joined him in the afterlife. um Shakespeare and his wife like rewrite the story in front of the audience. It's very fun, very lighthearted. um Not a musical, but Oh Mary is so funny. It is about it is an absurdist comedy. I wouldn't even say it's about Mary Todd Lincoln because there's no truth to this. It is so funny. I have never sat in a Broadway theater and guffawed like that. It was just absolutely absurd and over the top, like so funny. It was so great. And they have got some Cole Escola, I think is their name. They wrote it, they won the Tony for it. But Titus Burgess has played Mary, Jinx Monsoon, drag queen, has played has played Mary, and Jane Krasinski is currently playing it right now. And
okay.
So funny. Highly recommend.
That's on our list. I think we have to have a like what to do in New York for this episode and the, what to do on Broadway. And we'll just make a clip of this to share with everybody. Okay. So this is another one that I think if people are buying their tickets ahead of time and they've never been to a show, where are the best places in the theater to sit to have the best view? Where would you choose your tickets?
Everyone wants to be in the orchestra and sit like as close to the front as possible. And like, yes, great. If you can, sure. I like to be in the very front of the mezzanine because you get to see everything. You get to see all the formation, like from above, like the formation of the dance numbers, and see how the ensemble moves. Like you're not watching it as this flat thing. You're a little elevated so you can look down onto it and you see so much more of the show that way. I love being in the first few rows of the mezzanine. That's my favorite place to sit. Or like smack dab in the middle of the orchestra. But, you know, I think I would prefer to be in the mezzanine just because tickets are cheaper. And like I said, you get this like bird's eye view of everything that you don't necessarily get to see when you're at eye level.
Do people have enough time to get a drink, go to the bathroom, what have you, in an intermission? I'm sure there are a lot of people are kind of like, do I leave? Do I stay?
Yes, you absolutely do. More often than not, the ladies' restroom is so overrun and overpacked. I just went to go see Death Becomes Her again, and they had to open up the like toilet section of the men's restroom because the ladies took so long. You can also now pre-order your drink before intermission, so they're ready for you when you get there, so you don't have to wait. I recommend going to like CVS ahead of time and putting snacks in.
But we didn't say that. We didn't say
that. Get your drink in the theater. Sure, they won't let you bring liquids in, but like if you're gonna go get Sour Patch Kids, my favorite, and like peanut M&Ms, get them ahead of time, and
that's good.
In your purse or in your pocket, your coat pocket, and then you're good to go.
I love it. Like I have to say, we just saw Wicked for good in the theater, and my kids for Wicked, I got them these cute little, because we had a Wicked themed birthday party last year. So they have these sweet little, I don't know if you call them a flask or what have you, like a small green bottle that looks like I guess it's absinthe bottle from the movie. So we come in with and I told the theater people, I know they're not supposed to have their drinks, but like it's for Wicked. I'm so sorry. And they said, oh, it's fine. It's so cute. Don't worry about it. So, people are more flexible than we think. And so the last question I have for you, Wesley, is, so now we've enjoyed the theater. We took our bathroom breaks. You told us we could. We got our drinks. We've got our Sour Patch Kids in our purse. Everything has gone swimmingly. Now it's the end of the show. And maybe some of us are surprised to know, oh, there's a stage door. Maybe we'll go get to meet someone from the show. So is that something that cast members like? And if you do like it and you're taking part in it, is there a way that we as an audience member can show up to be supportive, but not cross boundaries and not be, making people feel uncomfortable after they've already worked really long and hard, as we've covered in this discussion today?
Yes. So stage door is I personally enjoy stage door most of the time. Obviously, there are some days where I don't have it in me. I'm vocally tired, I'm physically tired, I'm not feeling well. It is a privilege, not a right. And even though you have come to see these people in these shows, having access to them that intimately is not always a right that we're given. Like I said, I do like to stage door. I like interacting with people, and so many people do. And when we can't, it isn't necessarily because we don't want to. Like I said, the exhaustion of an 8-show week, depending on what day you come in that week. By the end of the week, we are worn out and tired. We've done 8 of these shows in 6 days, with 1 day off a week. Like, remember the humanity behind the people that you're coming to see, because yes, Jeremy Jordan is celebrity, Audra McDonald is celebrity, and we want to meet them, but they are still humans who have needs and can't always do it. And if they do, I don't know anybody that is rude about it. Sometimes they, wave and they're not signing today, or they'll walk out and they'll wave to the crowd. Don't take it personally if they're not signing. I know that you really wanted that thing, and disappointment, I understand. But there's so many factors that go into stage doors. Sometimes if I'm holding on for dear life, being around a bunch of, as we learned during the pandemic, people are gross. People are, all of us, myself included, we're germy. We touch things. We're grabbing on subway poles. We're itching our eyes. We're coughing. And like, in order to do the show the next day, I might not be able to interact with people for my own protection of craft. I think that the best way to show your respect is obviously no clawing, no pawing at people. If we don't know, we shouldn't be putting our hands on anybody anyway. But you see, people on red carpets, like jumping the turnstiles and grabbing Ariana Grande, and I'm like, human being, keep your hand. You don't know this woman. Keep your hands off of other people.
Thank goodness for Cynthia.
Yes,
she was so brilliant.
Like Mama Wolf over there, and I'm like, yeah, protect your girl. Like there's an apocalypse too. But yeah, just knowing that it is a privilege, not a right, and so being respectful. Ask before taking a photo. They may not. I always carry my own Sharpie so that I don't have to like pass off and hand off, and people don't always have a pen. Then you got your thing. Plus, also not sharing germs and passing things around. But yeah, be respectful. Remember that it's a human being behind the thing that you're wanting from them. And it's not a bad thing to want that. Get your signatures. I have so many signed playbills. But remember that there's a human being on both sides of that interaction is the most.
Well, thank you so much, Wesley, for being here and for humanizing. I think it's really easy to have this strange disconnection between people on the screen or people on the stage and us. And I think it's really wonderful when we put ourselves on equal footing. But that also means that we have to treat people the way that we would expect to be treated in real life. Like you said, no pawing and things like that. So I think it's that humanizing is so important in general in life. And you've done so much of that today on the show. And also with Places, Please, as it comes to fruition, we are so excited and we will collaborate any way we can to get the word out. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. It's been such a pleasure to connect with you on the show.
Thank you for having me. It has been truly wonderful. And, the more I talk about my life in this project, the more invigorated I get for it, because hearing just the ways that it resonates with you in your line of work, I'm like, that's why we're doing it. That's what it's for. It's for the connectivity of that. And I'm so grateful to have gotten to sit and to get to have some time to chat with you, get to know each other, and experience this together. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Wesley. Again, and everyone check out Wesley Ryan and stay engaged with their social media where you are on TikTok or Instagram so that you can see all the amazing things that are coming forward with Places, Please. And thank you to storytellers for being here on the show today. We appreciate your time and would love to hear your takeaways from this week's show. Share with someone who would love this discussion too. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Talks with Dr. Shafer, where you enjoy podcasts so you don't miss any of the inspiring episodes we have coming up. Until next time, stay safe and take care. I'll talk to you soon.
And remember, live your delusion.